Life is full of transitions, and one of the most challenging experiences we face is when the people we rely on suddenly change. Sometimes it's a friend who drifts away, a colleague who no longer shows the same support, or even a loved one who starts walking a different path. In those moments, we feel the ground beneath us shift. The comfort of familiarity disappears, and we are left to question what went wrong. But here's the truth. Change in others is not always about us. People grow, circumstances evolve, and priorities shift. The real test is not in understanding why they changed, but in discovering how we stand when we are left to walk alone. Being strong alone is not about building walls around your heart. It is about learning resilience, the ability to stand firm in your values and your purpose, even when others do not walk beside you. Strength alone teaches us independence of thought, emotional maturity, and clarity of direction. These are not skills we are born with, but lessons we learn when life removes the people we once leaned on. Think about it. If our confidence only exists when others validate us, then our strength is fragile. But if we can find clarity, discipline, and courage in solitude, then no sudden change in people's behavior can shake us to our core. Strength alone is not isolation, it is preparation. It prepares us to face the world with grounded stability rather than depending on others for balance. When people change, it often reveals who they truly are. But when we learn to stay strong alone, it reveals who we truly are. The silence of being by yourself can feel uncomfortable, but it is in that silence that you hear your authentic voice. It's where growth happens, where vision sharpens, and where resilience takes root. So the next time someone's sudden change leaves you in confusion or pain, remember this: their change is not your downfall. Their distance is not your weakness. It is your opportunity to strengthen the muscle of self-reliance, to walk your own path with clarity, and to stand tall not because someone stands beside you, but because you've learned how to carry yourself. 5 keynotes of the speech: sudden change in others is often beyond our control. It reflects their growth, not our failure. True strength is measured by our ability to remain grounded when support systems shift away. Being strong alone builds resilience, clarity, and independence of thought. Solitude is not weakness. It is where authentic self-discovery and growth take place. Others' changes may reveal who they are, but your strength alone reveals who you are. When people suddenly change, our natural instinct is often to search for the reason within ourselves. We ask questions like, did I do something wrong? Or why don't they see me the same way anymore? This reaction is deeply human because relationships form a large part of our identity and self-worth. When someone's behavior toward us shifts, it feels personal, almost like a reflection of our own inadequacy. But the reality is that sudden change in others is often beyond our control. And more importantly, it is not always about us. It is a reflection of their growth, their circumstances, and their evolving priorities. Understanding this truth requires us to shift perspective from self-blame to acceptance and from confusion to strength. People change because life demands it. Sometimes they change because they encounter new environments, new ideas, or new challenges that reshape how they think and act. A friend who once shared every moment with you may drift away because they have entered a new phase in life where their responsibilities consume them. A colleague who once supported you may no longer align with your direction because their career has taken them down a different road. A loved one who once promised consistency may suddenly see life through a different lens because of personal struggles you may not even be aware of. In all these cases, the change feels sudden to us, but in reality, it has been building quietly within them. It is not about us being insufficient, but about them adjusting to their own growth or pain. When we misunderstand this, we often take responsibility for what is not ours to carry. We may spend hours replaying conversations in our mind, trying to decode where things shifted, but this only drains us further and keeps us trapped in a loop of self-doubt. Instead, when we recognize that sudden changes in people are not always tied to our worth, we reclaim power over our perspective. We stop seeing ourselves as victims of abandonment and start seeing ourselves as observers of life's natural flow. People are not static beings, they evolve just as we do. Sometimes their evolution aligns with ours, and sometimes it diverges. That divergence does not mean we are wrong or unworthy. It simply means their path is no longer parallel to ours. Accepting that others' changes are beyond our control helps us focus on what we can control: our response. We cannot stop someone from outgrowing us, from drifting away, or from reprioritizing their life in a way that no longer includes us. But we can decide not to internalize their change as a personal failure. We can decide to view their shift as a reflection of their journey, not as a judgment on ours. This perspective is freeing because it removes the unnecessary burden of guilt and rejection. It allows us to acknowledge their change with grace and continue walking our own path with clarity. Sometimes, sudden change in people reveals more about them than it does about us. It reveals their fears, their struggles, their ambitions, and their limitations. For example, someone who distances themselves might be dealing with an internal battle that they are unable to share. Someone who becomes colder or less supportive might be overwhelmed by their own challenges and unable to give energy outward. In these cases, their change is a mirror of their own state of mind, not an evaluation of our value. If we mistakenly interpret their behavior as our fault, we lose sight of this truth and allow their actions to define us. But when we step back and see the broader picture, we realize that their change is part of their own process of growth or survival. It is also important to acknowledge that just as others change, so do we. There may have been times when we ourselves shifted in ways others could not understand. We may have moved away from certain people or habits because they no longer aligned with who we were becoming. At the time, we might not have fully explained ourselves, and to others, it may have felt sudden. Remembering this humbles us and helps us understand that change is not betrayal. It is often a necessity for growth. If we grant ourselves the freedom to change, we must also extend that freedom to others without resentment. This doesn't mean that sudden change doesn't hurt. The pain of losing a familiar bond or a reliable presence is very real. But pain does not have to become blame. The key lies in allowing ourselves to feel the loss while also recognizing that it does not diminish our worth. It is natural to grieve the absence of what once was, but it is also essential to remind ourselves that their change does not erase our value or our journey. In fact, it often pushes us to discover new strength, independence, and clarity that we might not have developed otherwise. Ultimately, when people suddenly change, the healthiest response is to accept that their transformation belongs to them, not to us. Their growth, their struggles, their shifting priorities are all part of their story. We are responsible only for our own path, and our strength lies in walking it without needing to hold on to what no longer belongs in our journey. In recognizing this, we not only protect our peace, but also allow others the freedom to evolve without making their evolution a wound in our lives. This perspective transforms sudden change from a source of insecurity into an opportunity for personal strength and understanding. True strength is measured not when everything feels stable, but when the ground beneath us suddenly shifts and we are left to stand on our own, when support systems that once seemed secure are no longer present, when friends distance themselves, or when people we trusted no longer offer the same encouragement, we are faced with a test that goes deeper than words. In those moments, our ability to remain grounded becomes the true reflection of our inner resilience. Strength is not about how much we can carry when surrounded by help, but about how steady we remain when the familiar voices of reassurance grow silent. The human instinct is to rely on others for balance. From childhood, we seek comfort and connection, validation from those we admire, and a sense of belonging to anchor us. These bonds are important and meaningful, but if our identity and confidence rest entirely on them, we risk fragility. When support systems shift, if our strength comes only from external validation, we crumble. On the other hand, if our foundation is built on inner clarity and a grounded sense of purpose, we can withstand the loss of support without losing ourselves. Remaining grounded during sudden shifts means holding on to what is constant within us even when everything around us changes. People's attitudes may fluctuate. Their choices may surprise us and their loyalty may fade, but our values, our vision, and our sense of direction can remain unshaken. This is the essence of true strength, standing in alignment with who we are, regardless of who stays or who leaves. It is easy to feel stable when surrounded by cheerleaders. It is far more challenging and far more powerful to feel stable when the cheer fades and silence sets in. When others step away, the temptation is to lean toward bitterness, anger, or despair. But those responses only create deeper instability. Strength is not about denying the pain of losing support. It is about acknowledging that pain and still choosing not to be defined by it. A tree does not stop growing when the wind pushes against it. Instead, it digs its roots deeper into the soil. In the same way, sudden changes in our support systems push us to dig deeper into our inner strength, our self-discipline, and our faith in our own abilities. Remaining grounded also requires perspective. The departure of support is not always a punishment or betrayal. Sometimes it is simply part of life's natural process. People move in and out of our lives because their season with us has ended or their journey no longer aligns with ours. While it may feel like loss, it can also be an opportunity to grow more independent. If we view every shift as rejection, we weaken ourselves with unnecessary pain. But if we understand that change is part of the flow of life, we stand stronger because we do not let others' decisions determine our stability. In times when support systems shift, one of the greatest challenges is trusting our own voice. Without external encouragement, doubts can echo louder in our minds. We may question whether we are capable, whether we are on the right path, or whether we should even continue. This is where grounded strength becomes essential. True strength whispers, keep going, even when no one else says it. It reminds us that our worth is not determined by how many people clap for us, but by how faithfully we keep walking our own road. Strength in solitude does not mean isolation from people forever. It means learning to carry yourself even when no one carries you. It means being able to find stability within yourself so that when people come and go, as they inevitably will, you are not constantly thrown off course. This grounded strength gives us freedom. Freedom from dependence, freedom from insecurity, and freedom from the fear of change. It is not that we no longer value relationships, but that we do not allow their instability to destabilize us. The world admires external displays of strength, physical endurance, loud confidence, or visible success. But the deeper, quieter strength is the ability to stay grounded in the face of instability. It is the calmness of continuing to move forward without collapsing under the weight of sudden change. It is the discipline of holding on to purpose even when others no longer provide encouragement. It is the steadiness of being rooted in principles so deeply that external shifts cannot uproot us. When people change, when systems of support are removed, we have the chance to see what kind of foundation we truly stand on. Do we depend on the shifting tides of others to remain upright, or do we anchor ourselves in values, clarity, and purpose that no one can take away? It is in these moments of solitude, uncertainty, and shifting ground that true strength is revealed not by appearances, but by endurance. Being strong alone builds resilience, clarity, and independence of thought, and these three qualities form the foundation of personal growth. Resilience is the ability to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing your essence. Clarity is the gift of seeing your path more sharply when distractions fade. Independence of thought is the courage to trust your own judgment without relying on the approval of others. When we are placed in situations where we must stand on our own, life is not punishing us, but rather giving us the opportunity to develop these qualities at a deeper level. Resilience grows when comfort disappears. As long as we have people around us constantly reassuring us, cushioning our mistakes, or carrying part of our burden, our ability to endure hardship remains untested. But when we are left alone to carry the weight ourselves, we discover that we are stronger than we believed. Every time we survive a challenge without leaning on someone else, our resilience strengthens like a muscle being exercised. It does not mean we do not value support. It means we no longer collapse when it is absent. Resilience teaches us that pain and struggle are not the end of us, but the process through which we become more capable of handling life's unpredictability. Clarity emerges when noise fades. When we are surrounded by too many opinions, expectations, and voices, it becomes easy to lose sight of our own direction. But solitude forces us to listen more deeply to ourselves. We begin to ask, what do I truly want? Instead of, what do others expect from me? This shift is powerful. Without the constant influence of others shaping our decisions, we are able to identify which goals are authentically ours and which ones were borrowed from those around us. In moments of aloneness, decisions that once felt confusing suddenly reveal themselves with simplicity. That is the gift of clarity. It cuts through the noise and gives us a clean picture of who we are and where we must go. Independence of thought is born from the courage to trust our own voice. When people are always around to guide us or to offer approval, it is tempting to let them do the thinking for us. But true independence comes when we are forced to form our own opinions, stand by them, and act on them even if no one agrees. Being strong alone demands that we think critically, that we weigh decisions on our own values rather than relying on the comfort of consensus. This independence of thought is essential because it shields us from being swayed by every change in people's behavior or every trend in society. It allows us to remain consistent even when the world around us is inconsistent. These three qualities, resilience, clarity, and independence, are not separate. They reinforce one another. Resilience makes it possible to endure solitude long enough to find clarity. Clarity ensures that resilience is not wasted on meaningless battles, but directed toward a purposeful path. Independence of thought gives both resilience and clarity the strength to stand even when external validation disappears. Together, they create a person who is not easily broken, not easily lost, and not easily manipulated by sudden changes in others. Standing strong alone also provides a perspective that we cannot gain when constantly surrounded by people. It shows us what we are truly capable of. Often, we underestimate ourselves because we assume we cannot move forward without someone else's guidance, support, or presence. But when circumstances force us into solitude, we discover abilities we never knew we had. We learn that we can make hard choices, that we can endure silence, that we can create stability within ourselves without depending on someone else to hold us together. This realization builds a confidence that cannot be taken away because it is not built on external approval. It is built on lived experience of our own strength. Of course, this process is uncomfortable. No one chooses to be strong alone because it is easy. It often comes after loss, disappointment, or sudden change that strips away the comfort of companionship. Yet in that discomfort lies transformation. Just as a diamond is formed under pressure, we are shaped most powerfully in moments when we feel we have no one else to lean on. We learn to become the person we once searched for in others. And when we return to relationships or communities after building resilience, clarity, and independence, we contribute with greater strength, not out of neediness, but out of wholeness. Life is unpredictable. People may change, relationships may fade, and support systems may vanish. But the strength we build when we are alone never leaves us. Resilience remains within us as proof of what we have survived. Clarity remains as a compass to guide us forward. Independence of thought remains as a shield against being lost in the crowd. These are gifts earned not in comfort, but in solitude, and they are the very qualities that make us unshakable in a world where change is the only constant. Solitude is often misunderstood. Many people equate being alone with being weak, abandoned, or forgotten, but solitude carries a very different meaning when we look at it through the lens of growth. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is a void created by absence, but solitude is a space created for presence, the presence of self, of thought, of reflection, and of discovery. It is in this space that we encounter who we really are, stripped of noise, distraction, and external influence. Far from being weakness, solitude is a hidden strength because it allows us to build the inner resource necessary to live with clarity, courage, and direction. When people change suddenly and distance themselves, the silence that follows can feel heavy. The absence of familiar voices can create doubt and unease. Yet, this very silence is what makes solitude powerful. It forces us to confront questions we might otherwise avoid. Who am I when no one is watching? What values guide my decisions? What kind of life do I want to live? These are questions that can only be answered in the quiet, away from the noise of constant validation. Solitude compels us to listen inward, and in doing so, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. This process of self-discovery is the foundation of strength, because a person who knows themselves cannot be easily swayed by the opinions or changes of others. Growth in solitude often begins with discomfort. We are so accustomed to constant stimulation and companionship that silence can feel unbearable at first. But discomfort is not a signal to run. It is a signal that transformation is taking place. Just as a seed must push against the soil in darkness before breaking into the light, we must sometimes sit in the discomfort of solitude before clarity emerges. Over time, that silence stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like freedom. The freedom to think, to dream, to plan, and to simply be without needing approval. One of the greatest strengths that solitude builds is the ability to regulate emotions. When surrounded by others, it is easy to use their presence as a distraction from our own pain or confusion. But when we are alone, we face our emotions head on. We learn how to process them, how to sit with them without judgment, and how to rise above them without burying them. This ability to manage emotions independently makes us far stronger in relationships and communities because we no longer depend on others to stabilize us. We bring stability with us. Solitude also fosters creativity and innovation. History is full of examples of people who found their greatest insights not in the crowd, but in moments of isolation. When we are alone, our minds are free to wander, to connect ideas, and to see possibilities without the interruption of external voices. It is in solitude that visions are born, goals are clarified, and plans are sketched out. What may appear as weakness from the outside, someone sitting quietly, removed from the crowd, is often the birthplace of strength because it is where new beginnings are imagined. Being comfortable with solitude also changes the way we relate to others. When we have discovered ourselves in silence, we no longer enter relationships out of desperation or neediness. We enter them from a place of wholeness, which makes our connections healthier and more genuine. Solitude teaches us that we can stand alone, which means that when we stand with others, it is not because we must, but because we choose to. That choice makes relationships richer because they are rooted in freedom rather than dependency. There is also a discipline that comes with solitude. Without the structure of others holding us accountable, we must learn to hold ourselves accountable. We create our own routines, motivate ourselves to keep moving, and discipline our minds to focus even when no one is watching. This inner discipline becomes one of the most powerful forms of strength because it prepares us for times when external accountability disappears. A person who has learned discipline and solitude carries that strength into every area of life, making them dependable, consistent, and resilient. Far from being weakness, solitude is one of life's greatest teachers. It strips away illusions and reveals truths we may not want to see but need to face. It challenges us to become our own source of encouragement, to create stability from within, and to walk forward even when the path feels lonely. In this way, solitude transforms from something we fear into something we treasure. It is the space where authentic growth happens, where we stop being shaped by others and start shaping ourselves. When people change suddenly and leave us to walk alone, it can feel like a loss, but it is also an invitation to enter the classroom of solitude and learn lessons that no companion could ever teach us. Strength built in solitude is the kind of strength that lasts because it is not borrowed or dependent. It is ours, and it grows quietly but powerfully, preparing us for every change that life will inevitably bring. Others' changes may reveal who they are, but your strength alone reveals who you are. This truth is often overlooked because we tend to focus so heavily on what others are doing, how they are behaving, and what their choices say about us. When someone pulls away, when their attitude shifts, or when their loyalty fades, our instinct is to examine them, to analyze their behavior, and to try to interpret their motives. While this may give us temporary answers, it does not build us. Their actions reveal their priorities, their maturity, their values, and their character. But the more important question is not who they have revealed themselves to be. It is who you reveal yourself to be when faced with their change. That is where strength alone becomes defining. When people change suddenly, they uncover truths about themselves that we may not have seen before. Someone who walks away easily reveals their level of commitment. Someone who turns cold without explanation reveals their communication style. Someone who changes with every new influence reveals their lack of consistency. These changes are mirrors of their inner world. They show us what kind of person they are becoming. But while those revelations may be surprising or painful, they do not determine our path. What determines our path is how we respond. When we stand strong, when we refuse to let their changes dismantle our confidence, we reveal something far deeper about ourselves. Your strength in those moments says more about you than their behavior ever could. If you collapse when people shift, you reveal dependency. If you respond with bitterness, you reveal unresolved ones. But if you hold steady, if you continue to honor your values, if you maintain your clarity and purpose despite their change, you reveal resilience, maturity, and integrity. This is why strength alone is so important. It is the stage on which your true self is revealed. You may not control how others behave, but you do control how you show up when they do. Strength alone is not about pretending to be unaffected. It is about allowing yourself to feel the sting of disappointment, to acknowledge the pain of change, and still choosing to rise above it. That choice reveals courage. It shows that you can hold both vulnerability and power at the same time. People often believe that being strong means shutting off emotions, but real strength is about processing emotions without letting them dictate your identity. When you choose to keep moving forward, even with a heavy heart, you reveal not weakness but depth. There is also an authenticity that comes from revealing yourself through strength. When others change, they may hide behind excuses, distractions, or silence. But when you remain strong, you reveal yourself fully, not in what you say, but in how you carry yourself. You reveal your ability to remain consistent, your commitment to your own growth, and your refusal to be defined by instability around you. This is why strength is admired, not because it denies hardship, but because it demonstrates character through hardship. Think of the people you respect most in life. Chances are you admire them not because they had an easy path, but because they remained grounded when everything around them shifted. Their strength revealed their true character. In the same way, when you face sudden change in people, your response becomes your story. Others may reveal unreliability, selfishness, or inconsistency, but your steadiness reveals your resilience, your focus, and your ability to endure without losing yourself. It is also important to realize that strength alone is not only for surviving others' changes, it is for defining your own legacy. When people look back at how you responded to difficulties, they will not remember the details of who hurt you or who left. They will remember how you carried yourself through it. They will remember whether you stood with dignity, whether you continued to pursue your purpose, and whether you grew stronger through the experience. This memory becomes part of your identity, both to yourself and to others. Others' changes may reveal unpredictability, but your strength reveals stability. Others' changes may reveal fear, but your strength reveals courage. Others' changes may reveal avoidance, but your strength reveals responsibility. In this contrast lies the essence of growth. You cannot control who others become, but you can decide who you become in response to them. That choice, made in solitude and resilience, shapes your character more deeply than any external validation ever could. At the end of the day, sudden changes in people act as a kind of spotlight. They illuminate qualities in others that we might not have noticed before, and they give us the chance to decide what we will illuminate within ourselves. Their behavior may tell one story, but your strength tells another. And while their story belongs to them, your story, defined by how you stand strong when left alone, belongs entirely to you. When people suddenly change, it is easy to feel as though the world has tilted against us, as though their actions define our worth and determine our strength. But what we've discovered is that their change is not ours to control. It reflects who they are becoming, not who we are. What matters most is how we choose to respond when the familiar support systems fade and when the voices that once guide us fall silent. True strength is revealed in those moments, not in the comfort of companionship, but in the clarity of solitude, the resilience of endurance, and the independence of thought that comes when we walk alone. Each shift in people around us becomes an invitation, a chance to dig deeper into our own values, to listen to our own voice, and to cultivate the strength that cannot be shaken by external change. Solitude, far from being weakness, is the ground where authenticity grows, where we learn discipline, creativity, and emotional balance. And while others' changes may expose their fears, struggles, or growth, it is our response that reveals our true character. The world will always change. People will drift, priorities will shift, and support will not always remain constant. But if we can learn to be strong alone, then no change outside of us can dismantle the foundation within us. We become individuals who are steady, whole, and unshaken. People whose strength is not borrowed but built, not dependent but deeply rooted. And in the end, that is the kind of strength that carries us forward, no matter who stays and no matter who leaves.